The eviction notice felt like ice against Everly Stone's fingertips. She stood in the dim back office of Cornerstone Café, her café, the one her parents had gifted her 3 years ago with champagne toasts and tearful pride, and stared at the red letters stamped across the top. Final warning. 30 days. 30 days. Her lungs squeezed. The walls, painted that soft sage green she'd agonized over, the color that was supposed to represent growth and possibility, seemed to lean inward, suffocating her beneath the weight of failure she'd been outrunning for months. The espresso machine hissed from the front room like it was mocking her. "Miss Stone." A voice cracked through the silence. Nervous. The supplier's here. He says if we don't pay the invoice today, he's cutting us off." Everly didn't turn. She couldn't. If she looked at Jamie, her 17-year-old barista with the nose ring and hopeful eyes, she'd crumble completely. "Tell him I'll be right there," she managed, voice steady even as her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The door clicked shut. She pressed her palms flat on the desk, breathing through her nose. Think Everly. But there was nothing left to think about. She'd thought herself into this corner, trusted the wrong manager who'd stolen from the register, signed a lease she couldn't afford, poured her savings into renovations that were supposed to draw crowds but only drew debt. And now? Now she was 29, broke, and about to lose the one thing she'd wanted to prove she could do on her own. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. "Mom, how's my girl? How's the cafe? Sending love." Everly's throat burned. She couldn't tell them. Not yet. Not until she'd exhausted every last option. She shoved the eviction notice into a drawer, swiped the moisture from under her eyes, and walked into the main cafe. "Oh, hey there, friends. I'm so glad you're here for this one. It's a story about hope, hidden truths, and the kind of love that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. Before we dive deeper, I just want to say hello and ask, where in the world are you watching from? I love knowing you're out there, maybe with a warm drink in hand, ready for something that'll pull at your heartstrings. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Seriously, it helps more than you know, and I promise you, we've got so many incredible stories coming your way. You won't want to miss a single one. Now, back to Everly, because things are about to get even more complicated. The supplier, a broad-shouldered man with a clipboard and zero sympathy, stood by the counter tapping his pen like a countdown clock. 3,000, Miss Stone, he said flatly. "That's what you owe. And frankly, I've been patient." "I know. I appreciate that, I do." Everly forced a smile, the kind she'd perfected over years of customer service. Warm but not desperate. Confident but not cocky. "I just need one more week. I've got a corporate event booked, and once that payment clears." "You said that 2 weeks ago." Her smile faltered. "I can give you half now," she tried, even though her bank account was gasping on fumes. "And the rest? Full payment. Today. Or I pull my products, and you can explain to your customers why there's no coffee beans, no milk, no pastries." He checked his watch. "You've got till 5. He left. The bell above the door chimed cheerfully, a sick contrast to the dread pooling in Everly's stomach. Jamie hovered nearby, pretending to wipe down the espresso machine but clearly listening. "We're fine," Everly said automatically. Jamie nodded, but her eyes said otherwise. Everly retreated to the back office, pulled up her banking app, and stared at the number glowing on the screen. $1,247.82. Not even half of what she owed. She could call her parents. They'd help. They'd offered a dozen times. But that would mean admitting she'd failed. That their faith in her had been misplaced. That she wasn't the capable, independent daughter they believed she was. She'd find another way. She had to. The ad went live an hour later. Hiring. Cleaner/maintenance worker for small cafe. Immediate start. Flexible hours. Cash pay. She'd fired the last cleaning crew when she couldn't afford them anymore and had been scrubbing floors herself at midnight, running on fumes and spite. But if she was going to save this place, she needed to focus on bringing in customers, not mopping bathrooms. The pay was embarrassingly low. She knew that, but it was all she had. By 3 p.m., her phone buzzed with a single response. "Available to start today if needed. BB." No resume. No references. Just 2 sentences. Everly hesitated, finger hovering over the screen. Desperation makes strange bedfellows. She typed back, "Can you be here by 4?" The reply came instantly. Yes. Brent Blackwood arrived at 3:55 p.m. Everly noticed him through the window first. A tall figure in a faded gray hoodie and jeans that had seen better days, a backpack slung over one shoulder. He moved with a strange kind of ease, unhurried but purposeful, like someone who'd learned to be invisible. When he stepped inside, the bell chimed softly. Their eyes met, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, Everly forgot about the eviction notice, the supplier's deadline, the crushing weight of everything collapsing around her. Because his eyes were the warmest brown she'd ever seen. Steady. The kind of eyes that looked at you and made you feel seen. "Hi," he said quietly. "I'm here about the cleaning position." His voice matched his eyes. Unassuming. Yes. Everly blinked, pulling herself together. "I'm Everly. Owner. Brent." He offered a small smile. No handshake. Hands stayed in his pockets. Humble. Maybe shy. She glanced him over, worn sneakers, threadbare hoodie, the kind of tired that came from too many long nights and not enough breaks. He looked like someone who needed this job. Just like she needed help. "Experience?" she asked. "Enough," he said simply. Not cocky. Just honest. "References?" The pause. "Not really. But I work hard. I'm reliable. And I can start now if you need me to." She should have pressed. Should have asked more questions. But the clock on the wall read 4:07, and the supplier's deadline was ticking closer, and she was so tired of doing this alone. "Okay," she said. "You're hired." Something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe relief, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "Thank you," Brent said quietly. "Don't thank me yet," Everly muttered, already turning toward the storage closet. "You're about to earn every cent." But what Everly didn't know, what she couldn't know as she handed this soft-spoken stranger a mop and pointed him toward the back hallway, was that Brent Blackwood wasn't broke. He wasn't struggling. He wasn't even remotely what he seemed. And the reason he'd answered her ad had nothing to do with needing money, and everything to do with needing her. Would she ever discover the truth? And when she did, would it destroy everything they were about to build? Brent Blackwood cleaned like a man who understood the value of details. Everly noticed it within the first hour. He didn't just mop the floors, he moved the tables first, reaching the corners she'd been ignoring for weeks. He didn't just wipe down the counters. He disassembled the espresso machine drip trays and scrubbed them until they gleamed. He worked in silence, methodical and thorough, never asking for direction twice. It was unsettling actually. Most people she'd hired, especially for cash jobs, did the bare minimum. Showed up late, left early, complained about the work. Brent did the opposite. He showed up early, stayed late, and when he finished the cleaning checklist she'd given him, he found other things to fix without being asked. By closing time, the cafe looked better than it had in months. Everly stood behind the counter, watching him rinse out the mop bucket in the back sink, and felt a strange knot form in her chest. Gratitude maybe, or suspicion. She couldn't decide which. "You didn't have to do all that," she said as he emerged, drying his hands on a towel. Brent shrugged. "You're paying me to clean. Figured I'd do it right. Most people don't. Most people don't care." His eyes met hers again, steady, honest, and Everly felt that same unsettling flutter she'd felt when he first walked in. She looked away first. "Oh, thanks." She cleared her throat, reaching into the register for the cash she'd promised him. $60. It was embarrassingly little for 6 hours of work, but it was all she could afford. She held it out. Brent took it without counting, folded it once, and slipped it into his pocket. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. Everly hesitated. She couldn't afford to keep him on long term. Not with everything else hanging by a thread. But God, it felt good not to do this alone. "Yeah," she said quietly. "Same time." He nodded, grabbed his backpack, and headed for the door. "Brent." He paused, glancing back. "Why'd you take this job?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. No offense, but you could probably find something that pays better. For a moment, something flickered across his face, too quick to read. Then he smiled. Almost sad. Maybe I wasn't looking for better pay. And before she could ask what he was looking for, he was gone. Everly locked up at midnight. The city hummed around her, distant traffic, muted laughter from a bar down the street, the occasional wail of a siren. She stood on the sidewalk outside Cornerstone Café, keys in hand, and stared up at the sign her father had commissioned. Cornerstone. She'd named it that because it was supposed to be her foundation. The first piece of the life she was building. Proof that she didn't need to follow the safe, predictable path her parents had envisioned. Law school, corporate job, sensible marriage. She'd wanted to create something with her own hands. Something that mattered. But standing here now, drowning in debt and doubt, she wondered if she'd been naive. Her phone buzzed. Dad, proud of you, sweetheart. Always. The message was random. He did that sometimes, sent little affirmations out of the blue, but the timing gutted her. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on. Love you too, Dad. She couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Brent showed up the next day at 3:45 p.m. 15 minutes early. Everly was elbow-deep in a busted sink, water pooling on the floor, her hair plastered to her forehead, cursing under her breath. Need help? Brent's voice came from the doorway. She jerked upright, smacking her head on the underside of the counter. Oh, damn it. She pressed a hand to her scalp, blinking back tears of pain and frustration. No. I've got it. Brent didn't move. She glared at the pipe. It's just, the shutoff valve is stuck, and the plumber wants $200 just to show up, which I don't have, so I'm trying to. Let me look. It wasn't a question. Before she could protest, he'd crouched beside her, backpack discarded, eyes scanning the mess of pipes and pooling water. You've got a stripped valve stem, he said calmly. And your trap's leaking. You need a replacement washer here, he pointed, and this joint needs rethreading. Everly stared at him. How do you? I've done some maintenance work before. He pulled a small multi-tool from his pocket, worn but high quality, and got to work. Within 20 minutes, the leak was stopped, the valve replaced with a spare he'd somehow produced from his backpack, and the water was draining smoothly. Everly stood there, stunned, as he dried his hands on a rag. You just carry plumbing supplies with you? Brent's lips twitched. Almost a smile. I like to be prepared. Who are you? The question came out sharper than she intended, laced with suspicion and confusion and something else she couldn't name. Brent's expression shifted, guarded now, carefully neutral. Just someone who wants to help. Why? Does it matter? Yes, Everly said firmly. People don't just show up out of nowhere and fix things for minimum wage unless they want something. Brent stood slowly, meeting her eyes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The cafe felt too small. Too quiet. Maybe I'm just tired of working for people who don't care, he said finally. And maybe I saw your ad and thought, here's someone who actually gives a damn about what she's built. Everly's breath caught. How would you know that from a job posting? I didn't. His gaze didn't waver. I know it from watching you work. Her pulse hammered in her ears. You've been watching me? No, I mean, Brent ran a hand through his dark hair, flustered for the first time since she'd met him. I walked past this place a few times before I applied. Saw you through the window. You were rearranging the tables at like 11 at night, trying different configurations. Most owners wouldn't bother. They just give up. Everly's throat tightened. He saw that. He saw her. I haven't given up, she whispered. I know. Brent's voice was soft. Certain. That's why I'm here. Over the next week, Brent became indispensable. He fixed the temperamental espresso machine that had been sputtering for months. He rewired a flickering light fixture Everly had been meaning to call an electrician about. He reorganized the storage room so efficiently that she could actually find things now. And he did it all without fanfare, without asking for extra pay, without making her feel like she owed him anything beyond what they'd agreed on. Jamie noticed too. New guy's kind of amazing, the teenager said one afternoon, watching Brent repair a wobbly table leg with the focused precision of a craftsman. Where'd you find him? Honestly? No idea. Everly wiped down the espresso portafilter, eyes drifting toward Brent despite herself. He just showed up. He's really good-looking, Jamie added with a mischievous grin. In that mysterious, brooding, I've secrets kind of way. Jamie. What? I'm just saying. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. You should ask him out. Absolutely not. Why not? Because he works for me. Because I barely know him. Because I'm trying to save my business, not live a little? Jamie suggested. Everly shot her a look. But later, when Brent handed her a cup of coffee he'd made, perfectly pulled espresso, microfoam so silky it could have been art, she couldn't help but wonder. Who are you, Brent Blackwood? And why did it feel like he was saving her in ways that had nothing to do with plumbing and cleaning? On Friday, Everly made a decision. The corporate event she'd been counting on fell through. The client canceled last minute, no deposit, no apology. She was out of options. Out of time. She sat in the back office, staring at her laptop screen, at the email draft she'd been writing and rewriting for an hour. Subject: I need help. Mom and Dad. I don't know how to say this, but... Everly. She slammed the laptop shut. Brent stood in the doorway, concern etched across his features. You okay? Fine. The lie tasted bitter. He didn't move. You don't look fine. Well, I am. She stood abruptly, brushing past him. I just need to. Her voice cracked. Damn it. She pressed her palms against the doorframe, head bowed, fighting the tears that had been building for weeks. Hey. Brent's voice was closer now. Gentle. Whatever it is, you don't have to do it alone. Yes, I do. The words came out choked. This is my cafe. My responsibility. My failure. It's not a failure. I'm losing it, Brent. She turned to face him, and the dam finally broke. I'm 30 days from eviction. I owe money I don't have. I can't pay suppliers. I can't afford to keep the lights on. And I can't tell my parents because they believed in me, and I'm letting them down, and I don't know how to fix this. The words poured out in a rush, raw and desperate. Brent didn't flinch. He just stood there, listening, his expression unreadable. And then he said the strangest thing. What if you didn't have to fix it alone? Everly wiped her eyes. What? What if? He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. What if there was a way to bring in more customers? To turn this around? I've tried everything. Not everything. She stared at him. What are you talking about? Brent's jaw tightened, like he was wrestling with something internal. Finally, he said, Give me 1 week. Let me help you, really help you. Not just cleaning. Strategy. Marketing. Operations. You're a cleaner. I'm more than that. The certainty in his voice sent a shiver down her spine. Why would you do that? Because I believe in what you're building. His eyes locked onto hers, intense and earnest. And because I think you're worth betting on. Everly's heart stuttered. No one had said anything like that to her in, she couldn't remember how long. 1 week, Brent repeated. If it doesn't work, I'll walk away. No hard feelings. She should have said no. Should have asked more questions. But desperation, and something deeper, something that felt dangerously like hope, made her nod. Okay, she whispered. 1 week. Brent's expression softened into something that almost looked like relief. You won't regret this. But as he left the office, Everly couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just agreed to something far more complicated than she understood. And in the shadows of his carefully constructed disguise, Brent Blackwood knew the clock was ticking on his secret. Brent started before sunrise. Everly arrived at the cafe at 5:45 a.m., earlier than usual because she couldn't sleep, because anxiety had her by the throat, and found him already inside. The lights were on. The espresso machine was running. And the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. How did you? She stopped mid-sentence, staring. Did you sleep here? Brent looked up from the laptop he had open on the counter, a sleek, expensive-looking device that definitely didn't match his worn-out hoodie. No, he said simply. Just got here early. Hope that's okay. You gave me a key yesterday. She had. In a moment of exhausted trust that she was now second-guessing. What are you doing? Research. He turned the laptop toward her. The screen displayed a detailed spreadsheet, customer traffic patterns, peak hours, average transaction values, competitor analysis. Everly's mouth fell open. Where did you get this data? Your POS system. I pulled the reports last night. He scrolled down. You're strongest during morning rush, 7 to 9 a.m., but you're losing the lunch crowd to the sandwich shop 2 blocks down. Afternoon traffic drops to almost nothing. You close at 7, but the office buildings around here don't empty until 6:30, which means you're missing the after-work crowd entirely. She moved closer, studying the numbers. He was right about all of it. How do you know how to do this? Brent's fingers paused over the keyboard. I've worked in hospitality before. As a cleaner? Among other things. Vague. Always vague. But the data didn't lie. Okay, Everly said slowly. So what do we do about it? Brent's eyes lit up, just a flicker, but she caught it. We changed the game. By Monday morning, Cornerstone Café had transformed. Brent had worked through the weekend, again, refusing extra pay, and when Everly walked in, she barely recognized the place. The tables had been rearranged to create a more open flow. The menu board had been redesigned with clearer pricing and highlighted specials. The lighting was warmer, more inviting. And there was music playing. Soft jazz. The kind that made you want to stay a while. Brent, this is... She turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. This is incredible. He stood near the counter, hands in his pockets, looking almost shy. It's just the beginning, he said. The real test is whether it brings people in. It did. By 7:30 a.m., the cafe was fuller than it had been in months. By 9 o'clock, there was a line out the door. Everly worked the espresso machine with Jamie on register, and Brent, despite being hired as a cleaner, jumped in without hesitation, bussing tables, refilling coffee, chatting with customers like he'd been doing it his whole life. He was good with people. Not in a flashy, performative way. Just genuine. He remembered names. Asked follow-up questions. Made everyone feel seen. Just like he'd made her feel. During a brief lull around 10:30, Everly pulled him aside. Where did you learn to do this? She asked, breathless and exhilarated and confused. And don't say, hospitality. Nobody learns to run a cafe like this from just working in one. Brent wiped down his hands, considering his answer. My family's in the business, he said finally. I grew up around restaurants. Phils. I know how they work. Then why are you cleaning floors for $60 a day? His expression shuddered. Because I needed a break from that world. Why? Because it's not real. The words came out sharper than she expected. He softened immediately. Sorry, I wanted to work somewhere that mattered. Somewhere built on passion, not profit margins. Everly's chest tightened. This place is definitely passion over profit, she said with a weak laugh. Considering I'm broke. You won't be for long. The certainty in his voice sent warmth flooding through her. You really believe that? Brent met her eyes. I believe in you. And God help her, she was starting to believe him. The lunch rush was even better. Brent had suggested a simple menu addition, gourmet grilled sandwiches and seasonal soups, that could be prepped quickly and sold at a premium. Everly had been skeptical. I'm not a chef. You don't have to be. I'll handle it. You cook too. That almost smile again. Among other things. He'd shown up that morning with ingredients, high-quality bread, artisan cheeses, locally sourced vegetables, and refused to let her pay for them. Consider it an investment, he'd said. Now, watching customers rave about the roasted vegetable panini and butternut squash soup, Everly realized she'd stumbled into something extraordinary. Not just the food. Brent moved through the cafe like he belonged there, like he'd always belonged there, and every time their eyes met across the room, her stomach did this stupid fluttering thing she hadn't felt since college. Don't, she told herself. Don't go there. He was her employee. He was temporary. He was a mystery wrapped in contradictions and vague answers. But when he smiled at her, really smiled, not that guarded half version, she forgot every logical reason to keep her distance. By closing time, the register held more cash than it had in weeks. Everly counted it twice, just to be sure. $3,400. In one day. She looked up at Brent, who was wiping down the espresso machine with that meticulous care he brought to everything. "This is insane," she whispered. "This is what happens when you give people something worth coming back for. We've never done numbers like this. You never had the right strategy." She shook her head, laughing in disbelief. "Who are you, Brent Blackwood?" He stilled just for a moment, then turned to face her. The air between them felt charged. Electric. "Does it matter?" he asked quietly. "Yes. Because this." She gestured at the cafe, at the cash, at everything he'd helped create in just days. "This doesn't make sense. You don't make sense. You show up out of nowhere, you fix everything, you refuse extra pay, and you act like it's no big deal. People don't do that. Maybe I'm not most people." Clearly. Her voice softened. "But why? Why me? Why this place?" Brent took a step closer. Then another. Until he was standing right in front of her, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, could smell the faint scent of coffee and something woodsy on his clothes. "Because when I walked past this cafe a month ago," he said, voice low and rough, "I saw you through the window rearranging chairs at midnight, and I thought, there's someone who hasn't given up. Someone who still believes in building something beautiful, even when it's hard." Everly's breath caught. "And I realized I wanted to be part of that," he continued. "Even if it meant starting from the bottom. Even if it meant you'd never know who I really was." Her heart pounded. "What does that mean?" He opened his mouth. The front door swung open. They both jumped apart. A woman in her 50s stepped inside, elegant in a tailored coat, her sharp eyes sweeping the cafe with the precision of someone who missed nothing. "I'm sorry, we're closed," Everly said automatically. The woman's gaze landed on Brent. Her expression shifted, surprise, confusion, something almost like anger. "Brent," she said, voice tight. "What the hell are you doing here?" Everly looked between them. "You know each other?" Brent's face had gone carefully blank. "Margaret." "Don't Margaret me." The woman strode forward, heels clicking against the hardwood. "Your father's been looking for you for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, Brent. Do you have any idea what you've put him through?" "I left a message." "A message?" "You disappeared without a word, stopped answering calls, and you think a vague message about needing space is acceptable?" Everly's mind raced. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Margaret turned to her as if just noticing she existed. "Margaret Vance, VP of Operations for Blackwood Hospitality Group." She looked Everly up and down. "And you are?" "Everly Stone, owner of this cafe." "Owner?" Margaret's lips thinned. "I see." "Margaret, don't." Brent's voice was low. "Warning." "Don't what?" "Don't tell her that you're supposed to be running a multi-million-dollar merger right now. Don't mention that you're the heir to one of the largest hospitality empires in the country." She turned back to Everly. "Did he tell you that? Or did he let you believe he was just some broke drifter looking for work?" The floor dropped out from under Everly's feet. "What?" she whispered. Brent's jaw clenched. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Margaret demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, you're playing dress-up in someone else's struggling business while your actual responsibilities are falling apart." Everly couldn't breathe. Empire. $1 million merger. Is that true?" She forced herself to look at him. "Are you?" "Yes." Brent's voice was rough. Defeated. "I'm Brent Blackwood. My family owns Blackwood Hospitality. Fills. Restaurants. Resorts. 60 locations across the country." The room tilted. "So this," her voice cracked. "Everything you did, everything you said, it was all a lie?" "No." "Everly, you let me pay you $60 a day when you're a billionaire?" "I didn't want your money." "Then what did you want?" She stepped back, anger and betrayal crashing over her in waves. "Why are you here? Is this some kind of game?" slumming it with the poor girl who can't keep her business afloat. It's not like that. He moved toward her, hands raised. I came here because I was tired of that world. Tired of people only seeing my last name, my money. I wanted to work somewhere real. To help build something that mattered. And I found that here. With you. By lying to me. I never lied. You let me believe you were someone you're not. Her voice rose, sharp with hurt. You watched me struggle, watched me break down about losing everything, and you didn't say a word. You could have helped me, really helped me, but instead you played some kind of twisted undercover boss game. That's not what this was. Then what was it, Brent? Tears burned her eyes. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you were using me for some kind of quarter-life crisis entertainment. I was falling in love with you. The words hung in the air. Everly froze. Brent's chest heaved, his eyes desperate and raw. I came here looking for something real, he said, voice breaking. And I found you. And yes, I should have told you the truth sooner, but I was terrified that if you knew who I really was, you'd stop seeing me. You'd only see the money, the name, the empire. Just like everyone else does. Margaret made a disgusted sound. Brent, this is ridiculous. Get out, Margaret. Excuse me? I said get out. This is between me and Everly. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Your father isn't going to tolerate this much longer. Then tell him to call me himself. For a long moment, Margaret stared at him. Then she turned on her heel and left, the door slamming behind her. Silence filled the cafe. Everly stood frozen, her mind a chaotic mess of emotions she couldn't untangle. Betrayal. Confusion. And underneath it all, the terrifying echo of his words. I was falling in love with you. Everly. Brent's voice was soft. Pleading. Please. Let me explain. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. Not the humble cleaner who'd fixed her sink. Not the kind man who'd believed in her cafe. A billionaire. An heir. Someone from a world so far removed from hers that they might as well be different species. I think you should go, she whispered. Everly. Please. Her voice broke. Just go. For a moment, she thought he might argue. But then his shoulders sagged and he nodded. Okay, he said quietly. But this isn't over. I'll prove to you that what we have is real. He grabbed his backpack and walked out. The bell chimed. And Everly stood alone in the cafe she'd almost lost, surrounded by the success he'd helped her build, and wondered if everything she'd started to feel had been built on a lie. Everly didn't sleep that night. She lay in her cramped studio apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every moment, every smile that now felt tainted with deception. I was falling in love with you. She rolled onto her side, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. He had no right to say that. No right to make her feel things she'd been carefully avoiding while lying about everything he was. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Finally, she grabbed it. 7 missed texts. All from Brent. Brent, I'm sorry. Brent, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. Brent, but please believe me when I say everything I felt was real. Brent, the cafe. All of it. Brent, I never meant to hurt you. Brent, can we please talk? Brent, I'm not giving up on you. Everly's vision blurred. She typed and deleted a dozen responses before finally settling on silence. What was there to say? He'd lied. Maybe not outright, but by omission. And worse, he'd let her pour her heart out about her failures, her fears, her financial desperation, all while sitting on enough money to solve every problem she had with a single phone call. The humiliation burned worse than the betrayal. She turned her phone face down and closed her eyes. But sleep never came. Tuesday morning arrived gray and cold. Everly opened the cafe at 5:30 a.m., exhausted and hollow. The space looked different now. The rearranged tables, the updated menu board, the warm lighting, all of it carried Brent's fingerprints. She hated that she couldn't look at any of it without thinking of him. Jamie arrived at 6:15, took one look at Everly's face and said, what happened? Nothing. That's the least convincing nothing I've ever heard. Everly tied her apron with more force than necessary. Brent quit. What? Why? Because it turns out he wasn't who he said he was. Jamie's eyes widened. Mysterious. Was he like a spy? A criminal? A secret prince? Close enough. Everly started the espresso machine. He's a billionaire. Jamie blinked. I'm sorry, what? His family owns Blackwood Hospitality. Hotels, restaurants, the whole thing. He's the heir. Wait. Jamie held up her hands. The guy who is cleaning our toilets for $60 a day is a billionaire? Apparently. Holy shit. Yeah. Jamie was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, so, did he say why he was pretending to be broke? Everly's throat tightened. He said he wanted something real. And he should have been honest about it. Fair. But like, Jamie leaned against the counter. Did he actually do anything wrong? Besides not telling you he was rich? That's not a small thing, Jamie. I know. I'm just saying, he worked his ass off for this place. For you. And all those ideas he had? They worked. We've had the best week we've had in months. Everly knew that. God, she knew that. Yesterday's numbers had been phenomenal. Today would probably be good too, riding the momentum. But every dollar felt like a reminder of him. I just need to focus on the cafe, Everly said quietly. That's all that matters right now. Jamie looked like she wanted to argue, but the morning rush started, and there was no more time to talk. The day was busy. Not as explosive as Monday, but steady. Everly worked mechanically, taking orders, pulling shots, smiling at customers, but her mind was elsewhere. Around 10 a.m., the door chimed. She looked up automatically, and her breath caught. Brent stood in the doorway. He looked like he'd slept about as well as she had, shadows under his eyes, hair disheveled, the same worn hoodie that now seemed like a costume. Their eyes met. For a moment, the cafe fell away. The noise, the customers, everything. Just him and her and the weight of everything unsaid. Then Everly looked away first. Everly, he started. You need to leave. Please. 5 minutes. I'm working. Then I'll wait. Jamie appeared beside her, eyes darting between them. I can cover if you want to. No. Everly's voice came out sharper than intended. I'm fine. Brent's jaw tightened, but he nodded. He ordered a coffee, black, simple, paid with cash, and sat at the corner table. And stayed. For the next 3 hours. He didn't approach her again. Didn't try to talk. Just sat there with a book he wasn't really reading, his presence a constant pull at the edge of her awareness. It was infuriating. And heartbreaking. And she hated that part of her wanted to walk over there and listen to whatever explanation he was desperate to give. At 2 p.m., a man in an expensive suit walked in. Everly recognized the type immediately, corporate, polished, the kind of person who looked at small cafes as quaint diversions rather than livelihoods. Everly Stone? He asked. That's me. He handed her a business card. Harrison Robb, Senior Acquisitions Manager, Apex Development Group. Her stomach dropped. I'll cut right to the chase, Harrison said with a practiced smile. Apex is developing this block. We've already acquired the buildings on either side of you, and we're prepared to make you a very generous offer for your property. This building isn't for sale. I understand the emotional attachment, but it's not for sale, Everly repeated firmly. Harrison's smile didn't waver. Miss Stone, I don't think you understand the situation. Apex owns the majority of this block. We're moving forward with development whether you participate or not. Now, you can accept our offer and walk away with a substantial profit, or you can fight it and likely lose everything in legal fees. Ice flooded her veins. Are you threatening me? I'm presenting you with reality. He slid a folder across the counter. That's our offer. It's good for 72 hours. After that, the price drops significantly. He left. Everly stood frozen, staring at the folder like it might bite her. Jamie peered over her shoulder. What does it say? With shaking hands, Everly opened it. The number at the bottom made her dizzy. $750,000. For the building her parents had gifted her. The cafe she'd poured everything into. It was more money than she'd ever imagined having. And it felt like a death sentence. Everly. Brent's voice, close and careful. She'd forgotten he was still there. What do they mean they're developing the block? She asked, voice hollow. Brent's expression was grim. Apex is notorious for buying up properties and building luxury condos. If they own the buildings around you, they can make your life hell until you sell. Construction noise, blocked access, permit issues. How do you know that? Because they tried the same thing with one of our properties in Boston. We fought them for 2 years. Because he wasn't just Brent, the cleaner who fixed her sink. He was Brent Blackwood, who had lawyers and resources and an empire to protect him. She didn't have any of that. I need you to leave, she whispered. Everly. Please. Her voice cracked. I can't do this right now. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, frustration, helplessness. But he nodded. Okay, he said quietly. But I meant what I said. I'm not giving up. He left. And Everly sank onto the stool behind the counter, the acquisition offer trembling in her hands, and wondered if the universe was trying to tell her something. Maybe she'd been fighting for something that was never meant to last. That night, Everly sat in the empty cafe with a bottle of wine she couldn't afford and the offer from Apex Development spread across the table. $750,000. She could pay off her debts, pay back her parents, start over somewhere else. Or she could fight. Risk everything on a cafe that had been bleeding money for months, now being targeted by a corporation that could crush her without a second thought. Her phone buzzed. Mom, just thinking about you, sweetheart. How's everything? Everly stared at the message. She could tell her mom the truth, ask for help, admit defeat, or she could keep fighting alone. Before she could respond, the back door opened. Everly's head snapped up, heart racing. Brent stepped inside, looking hesitant and determined all at once. The lock on your back door is broken, he said. I've been meaning to fix it. How did you? I know I'm the last person you want to see right now. He stayed by the door, hands visible, non-threatening. But I heard about Apex. And I couldn't leave you to deal with that alone. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're drowning, and you're too stubborn to ask for help. I don't need your help. Yes, you do. He took a step closer. Everly Apex is ruthless. They'll bury you in legal paperwork and construction delays until you have no choice but to sell. I've seen it happen. So what am I supposed to do? Just give up? No. You fight. But you fight smart. He moved to the table, pulled out a chair. Let me help you. Why? The word came out broken. Why do you care so much? Brent met her eyes. Because everything I said yesterday was true, he said quietly. I came here looking for something real and I found it. I found a woman who believed in building something beautiful even when the world told her it was impossible. Who worked until midnight rearranging furniture because she cared about every single detail. Who made every customer feel seen and valued. His voice dropped, raw and honest. I fell in love with your passion, Everly. Your heart. The way you fight for what matters. And yes, I should have told you who I was sooner. That's on me. But everything else, every moment we shared, every conversation, every time I looked at you and felt like I'd found something I didn't know I was missing, that was real. Tears slipped down Everly's cheeks. How am I supposed to believe you? She whispered. How do I know this isn't just some rich guy's fantasy? Playing poor until it gets boring? Brent's expression cracked with pain. You don't, he admitted. Not yet. But let me prove it to you. Let me help you fight Apex. Not with money, with strategy, connections, everything I learned growing up in this business. And when we win, if you still want me gone, I'll walk away. No questions asked. Everly wiped her eyes, her heart warring with her head. Every logical instinct screamed at her to protect herself. To push him away before he could hurt her again. But a quieter voice, the same one that had made her believe in the cafe when everyone else said it was impossible, whispered something different. What if he's telling the truth? What if you're pushing away the best thing that's ever happened to you? One condition, she said finally. Anything. No more secrets. No more half-truths. If we do this, you tell me everything. Brent's eyes softened with relief and something that looked dangerously like hope. Deal. Everly took a shaky breath. Help me fight them. Brent smiled, genuinely smiled, for the first time since Margaret had walked in and blown his cover. We're going to win this, he said with quiet certainty. I promise. And despite everything, despite the betrayal and confusion and fear, Everly felt the tiniest spark of hope kindle in her chest. Maybe she wasn't in this alone after all. But neither of them knew that the real battle was just beginning, and the secrets Brent was still keeping were far more dangerous than either of them imagined. The war room was Everly's apartment. Brent had offered his hotel suite, much more space, better Wi-Fi, but she'd refused. If they were doing this, they were doing it on her turf, with her rules. He'd arrived at 8 p.m. with his laptop, a stack of documents, and Thai takeout that smelled incredible. You didn't have to bring food, Everly said, eyeing the bags. When's the last time you ate? She opened her mouth. Closed it. That's what I thought. He set the containers on her small kitrob table. Pad Thai, spring rolls, and mango sticky rice. The first. Strategy second. Despite herself, her stomach growled. They ate in careful silence, the awkwardness of the past 2 days hovering between them like a third presence. Finally, Brent pushed his empty container aside and opened his laptop. Here's what we're dealing with. He pulled up a document. Apex Development has been buying properties in this neighborhood for 18 months. They've acquired 8 buildings so far, all under different subsidiary names to avoid attention. Everly leaned closer, studying the map he'd created. Red dots marked each acquisition. Her cafe sat right in the middle like a bullseye. They want the whole block, she said. The whole neighborhood, actually. They're planning a luxury mixed-use development. Condos, high-end retail, boutique hotel. He scrolled down. Projected revenue over 5 years, $340 million. The number made her dizzy. How am I supposed to fight that? By being the one property they can't touch. Brent clicked to another screen. Your building is historical. Built in 1924, original architecture mostly intact. If we can get it landmarked, Apex can't force you out. Hope flickered. Can we do that? It's not easy. We'd need to prove historical significance, get community support, navigate the city's preservation committee. He looked at her. But yes, we can try. Everly sat back, mind racing. How long would that take? 4 to 6 months, typically. But we can file a preliminary application within 72 hours, which would at least freeze any immediate action from Apex. You really know all this? Something flickered in his expression. I've dealt with Apex before. You mentioned that. Boston, right? Yeah. He closed the laptop. They tried to acquire a property adjacent to one of our hotels. We fought them for 2 years and eventually won. How? Brent was quiet for a moment. We buried them in legal fees until they gave up. I can't afford to bury anyone in legal fees. You won't have to. We'll fight smarter, not bigger. He hesitated. And Everly, if you need financial help with the legal costs. No. The word came out sharp. I'm not taking your money. It wouldn't be charity. It would be an investment. A loan if you prefer. No. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. Then we do it the hard way. He reopened the laptop and started outlining a strategy: community organizing, media attention, leveraging the historical landmark process. Everly watched him work, the focused intensity in his eyes, the way his fingers flew across the keyboard, and felt that dangerous warmth spreading through her chest again. He was good at this. Not just competent, brilliant. And he was doing it for her. Why are you really helping me? She asked quietly. Brent's hand stilled. He looked up. I told you. I know what you told me. But there's more to it, isn't there? She held his gaze. You said no more secrets. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then he closed the laptop and turned to face her fully. My father, he said slowly, built Blackwood Hospitality from nothing. Single hotel in Seattle, worked his way up. By the time I was born, we had 15 properties. By the time I graduated college, we had 40. That's impressive. It is. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about hospitality and started being about acquisition, profit margins, market dominance. His voice hardened. My father doesn't see people anymore. He sees assets, revenue streams, properties to be acquired or eliminated. Everly's breath caught at the bitterness in his tone. 3 months ago, he assigned me to lead our expansion into the boutique hotel market. Wanted me to prove I could run the business side, not just coast on the family name. Brent's hands clenched. I was supposed to find undervalued properties, acquire them, rebrand them under Blackwood. What happened? I hated it. The words came out raw. Every property I looked at was someone's dream. Small business owners who'd poured everything into these places. And my job was to figure out how to take them over or put them out of business. He stood abruptly, pacing to her small window overlooking the street. One night I was walking through this neighborhood, scouting locations. And I saw your cafe. His voice softened. Lights on at 11 p.m. You inside, moving tables around, trying different configurations. You looked determined, hopeful, like you still believed in what you were building. Everly's heart hammered. I came back the next night. And the next. Just watching. Trying to figure out what made a place like this work when so many others failed. He turned to face her. And then I saw your hiring ad. And I thought, what if I could learn from the inside? See what it takes to build something real instead of just acquiring it. So this was research? The betrayal cut fresh and deep. No. God no. It started that way, maybe. But the moment I walked in here, the moment you looked at me and gave me a chance? He crossed back to her, eyes desperate. Everything changed. You changed everything. Everly stood, putting the table between them like a barrier. Did your father know? That you were here? No. I told him I needed a break. Took a leave of absence. And he's looking for you. That's what Margaret said. Yes. What happens when he finds you? Brent's expression went dark. He'll try to drag me back. Threaten to cut me off, disinherit me, the usual threats. Would he actually do that? I don't know. I don't care. The certainty in his voice startled her. I'd give up all of it, the company, the money, the empire, if it meant keeping this. Keeping you. The air between them crackled with tension. Everly's hands gripped the edge of the table. You can't say things like that. Why not? Because I don't know if I can trust them. Trust you? Then let me prove it. He moved around the table slowly, giving her space to retreat if she wanted. She didn't move. Let me help you save this cafe, he said quietly. Not because I want to acquire it or study it or use it for anything except what it already is. Let me help you because I believe in what you're building. And because I'm falling more in love with you every damn day. Everly's breath hitched. He was close now. Close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the vulnerability he was laying bare. Brent. Her phone rang. They both froze. She glanced at the screen. A known number. It's almost 10 p.m., she muttered, answering. Hello. Miss Stone. A woman's voice, crisp and professional. This is Caroline Smith from the City Historical Preservation Office. I apologize for calling so late, but I wanted to reach you before you made any decisions regarding the offer from Apex Development. Everly's pulse spiked. How did you know about that? We received a very detailed application this afternoon requesting landmark status for your property. The application is quite thorough: historical documentation, architectural analysis, community impact statements. Everly's eyes snapped to Brent. He had the decency to look slightly guilty. I was going to tell you, he mouthed. I didn't file any application, Everly said carefully. No, but someone did on your behalf. Papers rustled. A Brent Blackwood. He's listed as a business consultant for Cornerstone Café. When was this filed? This afternoon. Around 3 p.m. Right after the Apex representative had left. Everly's mind raced. What does this mean? It means your property is now under preliminary review for landmark status. During this review period, which typically lasts 90 to 120 days, no major development or demolition can proceed without approval from our office. Caroline's tone warmed slightly. Between you and me, Miss Stone, your building is exactly the kind of property we love to preserve. Art Deco facade, original tile work, significant neighborhood history. You have a strong case. Thank you, Everly managed. We'll be in touch. Have a good evening. The call ended. Everly slowly lowered the phone, staring at Brent. You filed a landmark application without telling me? I was going to tell you tonight. I just wanted to make sure it went through first. He ran a hand through his hair. Everly, Apex gave you 72 hours. We didn't have time to debate it. It's my business. My building. You had no right. You're right. I'm sorry. I should have asked first. He stepped closer. But I meant what I said about not keeping secrets anymore. So here's the full truth. I filed that application using some connections in the city planning office. I may have expedited the review process by calling in a favor from someone who owes my family. And I did it because I'll do whatever it takes to protect what you've built. Everly's anger warred with reluctant gratitude. You can't just steamroll into my life and make decisions for me. I know. And I'll do better. I promise. His eyes searched hers. But right now, you've got 90 days of protection from Apex. That's 90 days to build community support, gather historical documentation, and make your case. We just bought you time. If you'll still have me. She should say no. Should keep her distance, protect her heart. But looking at him now, rumpled and earnest and clearly terrified she'd send him away, she couldn't find the words. Partners, she said finally. Not you making decisions for me. Equal partners. Relief flooded his features. Equal partners. And Brent. Yeah. No more surprises. No more surprises, he agreed. But even as he said it, even as she let herself believe him, neither of them heard the car pulling up outside her building. Neither of them saw the silver-haired man in the expensive coat stepping out, flanked by 2 attorneys. Neither of them knew that Brent's father had finally tracked him down, and that the empire Brent had been running from was about to come crashing into the small, fragile world they'd been building together. The knock on the door came at 10:47 p.m. Everly frowned. Are you expecting someone? Brent's face had gone pale. No. The knock came again. Harder. More insistent. Everly moved to the door, checking the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, late 50s, iron gray hair, sharp suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His eyes were the same warm brown as Brent's, but colder. Calculating. There's a man outside, she said. Brent was already on his feet, tension radiating from every line of his body. Don't open it. But who is he? My father. The knock became pounding. Brent. The voice was commanding, used to being obeyed. Open this door. Now. Everly looked at Brent. His jaw was clenched, hands fisted at his sides. I can send him away, she offered quietly. No. He took a breath, squared his shoulders. No. He'll just come back. Might as well get this over with. He moved to the door and opened it. The man on the other side, Brent's father, looked him up and down with an expression somewhere between relief and fury. 3 weeks, he said coldly. 3 weeks you've been playing house with? His eyes landed on Everly. Who is this? Everly Stone, owner of Cornerstone Café. Brent's voice was steady, but Everly heard the tension underneath. Everly, this is my father. William Blackwood. William's eyes narrowed. The café. He said it like a curse. The one Margaret told me about. What are you doing here, Dad? What am I doing here? What are you doing here? William stepped inside without invitation, the 2 lawyers filing in behind him. You walked away from a $50 million merger. You disappeared without a word. You've made the company look unstable and cost us 2 major deals. I took a leave of absence. That's within my rights. Your rights? William's laugh was harsh. You have rights when you earn them. Right now, you're a liability. Everly stepped forward. Mr. Blackwood, I think you should stay out of this. William said without looking at her. This is between me and my son. It's her apartment, Brent said sharply. Show some respect. William's eyes finally focused on Everly. Really focused. And she saw the exact moment he placed her, the struggling cafe owner, the acquisition target, the obstacle. His expression shifted. Hardened. Oh, this is rich. He turned back to Brent. Please tell me you're not throwing away your future for some failing cafe and its broke owner. Dad, how much is she paying you to play consultant? Or is this charity work to soothe your conscience? That's enough, Brent growled. But William was on a roll. Let me guess. You saw her struggling and thought you'd swoop in and save her. Play the hero. Feel good about yourself. He shook his head in disgust. You're wasting your talents on a business that'll be bankrupt within 6 months. Everly's face burned. Get out. William ignored her. Brent, you have until Monday to return to Seattle and resume your duties. If you don't, I'm removing you from all operational roles and reassigning your portfolio. Fine. William blinked. Excuse me? I said fine. Remove me. Reassign my portfolio. Do whatever you want. Brent's voice was calm. Final. I'm not coming back. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. For the first time, William looked uncertain. If you walk away from this company, you walk away from everything. Your trust fund. Your position. Your inheritance. I know. For what? For some woman you barely know? Some cafe that's already drowning in debt? For something real? Brent's voice rose. For work that actually matters. For people who see me as more than just a name and a bank account. You're being naive. Foolish. Maybe. But I'd rather be foolish and happy than miserable and rich. William's face darkened. You think you can survive without the family money? Without the connections, the resources, everything I built for you? I'll figure it out. And when she realizes you're not the golden ticket she thought you were? William gestured at Everly. When this little fantasy falls apart and you have nothing left? Then I'll have nothing, Brent said quietly. But at least I'll have tried to build something that mattered. Silence fell. William stared at his son like he was looking at a stranger. Then he turned to one of the lawyers. Draw up the disinheritance papers. Dad, you want to throw your life away? Fine. But you'll do it without a cent of Blackwood money. He moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. You have until Monday to change your mind. After that, you're on your own. He left, the lawyers trailing behind him. The door clicked shut. Brent stood frozen, his face drained of color. Everly's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Brent, she whispered. He turned to her, and she saw it, the weight of what he'd just done settling over him like a physical thing. I'm sorry, he said hoarsely. I'm sorry you had to see that. She couldn't finish the sentence. He's really going to disinherit you? Probably. And you're okay with that? Brent laughed, the sound broken and raw. I have no idea. Ask me in 6 months when the reality sets in. Everly moved to him, pulled him to the couch, made him sit. Why did you do that? She asked. Why would you give up everything for you? He looked at her, eyes burning with an intensity that stole her breath. For this. For the chance to build something that actually means something. That's insane. Yeah. Probably. He reached for her hand, hesitant. But every word I said was true. I'd rather have nothing and be here with you than have everything and be miserable in a life I hate. Everly stared at their joined hands, her mind reeling. This man, this billionaire heir who'd walked into her cafe 3 weeks ago pretending to be a broke cleaner, had just given up his entire inheritance. For her. For them. Brenta, her voice cracked. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me stay. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Say we'll figure this out together. Every logical thought in her head screamed that this was too much, too fast, too complicated. But her heart, her stupid, hopeful heart, was already answering. Okay, she whispered. Together. And when he pulled her into his arms, when she felt the tremor in his hands and the hammering of his heart against hers, Everly realized something terrifying and wonderful. She was falling in love with him too. But what neither of them knew was that William Blackwood didn't give up easily, and the revenge he was already planning would threaten everything they'd fought for. The next morning, everything fell apart. Everly arrived at the cafe at 5:30 a.m. to find a notice taped to the door. Emergency health inspection required. Premises closed until further notice. Her blood turned to ice. What the hell? She ripped the notice down, reading frantically. This doesn't make sense. We passed inspection 2 months ago. Brent appeared beside her, 2 coffees in hand. He'd stayed at a hotel last night. Her apartment was too small, too intimate after everything that had happened, but he'd promised to be here at opening. His face darkened as he read the notice over her shoulder. "This is my father," he said quietly. "What?" "He has connections everywhere. City inspectors, building departments, permits offices." Brent's jaw clenched. "This is retaliation." Everly's hands shook. "He can't just shut me down. That's illegal." "It's not technically illegal if he gets a legitimate inspector to file a complaint. Anonymous tip, suspected health code violations, mandatory emergency inspection." His voice was bitter. "I've seen him do it before." "To who?" "Anyone who gets in his way." The door to the building next door opened. An older woman, Mrs. Robb, who ran the alterations shop, stepped out, her own closure notice in hand. "Everly," she called. "Did you get one too?" Everly's stomach dropped. "You're closed too?" "Health inspection. They're saying something about shared ventilation systems and possible contamination." Mrs. Robb's eyes were wet. "I've been here 30 years. 30 years, and never once had a problem." Brent cursed under his breath. Everly pulled out her phone, calling the number on the notice. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. "They're not answering," she said, panic creeping into her voice. "They won't. Not until they're ready." Brent ran a hand through his hair, frustration radiating from him. "This is my fault. I never should have." "Don't." Everly cut him off. "Don't you dare apologize for standing up to him." "But he's coming after you because of me. He's coming after me because he's a bully who can't stand losing control." She squared her shoulders. "We'll fight this." "Everly." Her phone rang. Different number. "Hello. Miss Stone, this is Janet Reeves from Pacific Bank." The woman's tone was professionally apologetic. "I'm calling regarding your business loan. We've received some concerning information about your cafe's financial stability and current operational status." Everly's chest tightened. "What kind of information?" "We've been made aware of significant health code violations and potential closure. Given these circumstances, the bank is exercising its right to call in your loan immediately. Full payment is due within 10 business days." The world tilted. "That's $87,000, Everly whispered. "I don't have that. I understand this is difficult, but the terms of your loan are quite clear. If payment isn't received, we'll have no choice but to begin foreclosure proceedings on the property." "You can't. I have landmark status protection." "Landmark application doesn't protect against loan defaults, Miss Stone." "I'm very sorry." The call ended. Everly stood frozen on the sidewalk, the closure notice in one hand, phone in the other, and felt the walls of her entire world collapsing inward. "What did they say?" Brent's voice sounded distant. "They're calling in my loan. 10 days. She looked at him, vision blurring. "Your father did this. He went after my bank, didn't he?" Brent's silence was answer enough. "God." A broken laugh escaped her. "He's dismantling my entire life because you chose to help me. I'll fix this." "How?" The word came out sharp. "You just gave up your inheritance. You don't have access to that kind of money anymore." "I have some savings." "I told you I won't take your money." Her voice cracked. "Don't you see? This is exactly what he wants. He wants you to come crawling back, to choose the empire over this, over me. That's not going to happen." "Maybe it should." Brent recoiled like she'd slapped him. "What?" Tears spilled down Everly's cheeks. "Look at what's happening, Brent. Your father is destroying everything I've worked for just to prove a point. My cafe is closed. My loan is being called in. And it's only going to get worse. So we fight. With what? She spread her arms helplessly. I'm out of money. Out of options. And you, her voice broke. You gave up everything to be here, and I can't even keep my business open. I don't care about the business. I care about you. Well, maybe you shouldn't. The words exploded out of her, raw and desperate. Maybe you should go back to Seattle, make peace with your father, and forget any of this ever happened. I'm not abandoning you. I'm not asking you to abandon me. I'm asking you to save yourself. She wiped her eyes roughly. Because I can't watch you lose everything for someone who's about to lose everything anyway. Everly. Please. She took a step back. Just give me some space. I need to think. We should do that together. I need to do it alone. Her voice turned cold. A defense mechanism, armor against the pain threatening to drown her. You've done enough, Brent. More than enough. But this is my mess to clean up. Something shattered in his expression. Don't do this. Don't push me away when things get hard. I'm not pushing you away. I'm being realistic. She forced the words out even though they tasted like poison. Your father is right. This was a fantasy. And now reality is crashing down, and I need to deal with it on my own terms. I love you. The words hung in the morning air, devastating and beautiful. Everly closed her eyes, fresh tears tracking down her face. That's not enough, she whispered. Sometimes love isn't enough. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing on the sidewalk outside her closed cafe, the closure notice fluttering in his hand like a white flag of surrender. Everly spent the rest of the day in her apartment, staring at numbers that didn't add up. $87,000 loan payment due in 10 days. $2,100 in her business account. $847 in her personal account. The Apex offers sat on her table, $750,000. It would solve everything. Pay off the loan. Give her a fresh start. All she had to do was give up. Her phone buzzed constantly, Brent calling, texting, leaving voicemails she couldn't bring herself to listen to. Finally, she turned it off. At 11 p.m., someone knocked on her door. She ignored it. The knocking persisted. Everly. Jamie's voice. I know you're in there. Let me in. Reluctantly, Everly opened the door. Jamie stood there with a bag of groceries and a determined expression. I brought ice cream and vodka, she announced. And I'm not leaving until you tell me what's going on. Despite everything, Everly felt a weak smile tug at her lips. Come in. They sat on the couch and Everly explained everything. The closure, the loan, William's revenge, her fight with Brent. Jamie listened, eating ice cream straight from the container. So let me get this straight, she said finally. You're giving up on the cafe and the hot billionaire who's in love with you? It's not that simple. Sounds pretty simple to me. You're scared. I'm being practical. You're running. Jamie pointed her spoon at Everly. You told me once that you opened this cafe because you wanted to prove you could build something that mattered. That you could take a risk and make it work. And I failed. You haven't failed yet. You're just facing the hardest part. Jamie's eyes were fierce. And instead of fighting with the person who wants to help you, you're pushing him away because you're terrified of letting someone in. The words hit like a punch. What if he leaves? Everly's voice was small. What if I let myself love him completely, and then he realizes this was all a mistake? What if he doesn't? Everly had no answer. Jamie squeezed her hand. Look, I'm 17 and have never had a real relationship, so take this with a grain of salt. But that guy showed up every day, worked his ass off for basically nothing, gave up his entire inheritance, and told his father to screw off, all for you. If that's not real, I don't know what is. Everly's eyes burned. I told him to leave. Then tell him you were wrong. Jamie stood, pulling Everly up with her. Go. Before you lose the one good thing in this entire mess. Everly ran. She grabbed her coat, her keys, and ran out into the cold night toward the hotel where Brent was staying. Her heart pounded, her breath came in gasps, and every step felt like she was racing against time itself. She had to fix this. Had to tell him she was sorry, that she was scared, that she didn't mean any of it. She reached the hotel at 11:47 p.m., burst through the lobby doors, and stopped dead. Because Brent was there. Checking out. Suitcase beside him. Laptop bag over his shoulder. Their eyes met across the lobby. Everly's world stopped. "You're leaving," she whispered. And in that moment, as Brent's expression crumbled into something raw and broken, Everly realized she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. She'd pushed away the one person who'd been willing to risk everything for her, and now she might have lost him forever. Part 7. The Turning Point. "I'm not leaving." Brent's voice cut through the silence of the hotel lobby. Everly stood frozen, her chest heaving from the run, tears streaming down her face. "But you're checking out," she managed. "I'm changing hotels." He gestured to the desk clerk, who was carefully pretending not to listen. "This one's too expensive for someone who just got disinherited." A sob laugh escaped her. "Brent, I meant what I said." He left his suitcase and closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. "I'm not leaving. Not the city. Not the cafe. Not you. No matter how many times you try to push me away. I'm sorry." The words tumbled out, desperate and broken. "I'm so sorry. I was scared and stupid and I said things I didn't mean." "I know." His hands cupped her face, thumbs wiping away her tears. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we don't get through this by running from each other. Your father is destroying everything. Let him try." Brent's eyes blazed with determination. "He taught me everything about business. Strategy. Leverage. How to find weaknesses and exploit them. He just forgot that I learned from the best." Everly blinked. "What are you saying?" A slow smile curved his lips, not the careful, guarded one she'd seen before, but something fierce and brilliant. "I'm saying William Blackwood isn't the only one with connections and resources. And he made a critical mistake." "What mistake?" "He underestimated what I'd be willing to do for you." They went back to Everly's apartment, spreading documents across every surface. Brent's laptop glowed in the dim light as he pulled up file after file. "When I took my leave of absence, I downloaded every file I had access to in the company system," he explained, "including all of my father's current deals, acquisitions in progress, and confidential negotiations." Everly's eyes widened. "Is that legal?" "Technically, as VP of Development, I had authorization to access all of it. What I do with that information now?" He shrugged. "Gray area." "Brent, look at this." He turned the screen toward her. "My father has been quietly acquiring properties in this neighborhood for 18 months. But he's not doing it for Blackwood Hospitality." "What do you mean?" "He's doing it through a shell company, Pacific Ventures LLC, then flipping the properties to Apex Development at a markup. He's essentially being paid on both ends of the deal." Everly leaned closer, studying the documents. "That seems unethical?" "Definitely. Probably illegal, depending on how he structured it." Brent's fingers flew across the keyboard. "And if we can prove he's using his position at Blackwood to personally profit from deals that should belong to the company, the board will have grounds to remove him." "Would they actually do that? If the alternative is a massive lawsuit and public scandal?" "Absolutely." He pulled up another file. "And here's the beautiful part. The emergency health inspection he triggered? It was filed by an inspector who's on retainer with Pacific Ventures. That's a clear conflict of interest." Hope sparked in Everly's chest. "So we can fight it. We can destroy it. The inspection gets thrown out, your cafe reopens, and the landmark application proceeds." "What about my loan? The bank calling it in?" Brent's expression darkened. "That's trickier. But I made some calls this afternoon. Turns out the bank executive who approved the acceleration is a personal friend of my father's. So it's all connected. Everything's connected when you have enough money and influence." He closed the laptop. "But here's what William didn't count on. I know every move in his playbook because he taught them to me. And I know exactly how to beat him at his own game." Everly stared at him, This man who'd shown up at her cafe 3 weeks ago pretending to be a broke cleaner, and saw him clearly for the first time. Not the humble worker. Not even the billionaire heir. But someone caught between two worlds, finally choosing which one he belonged in. "What do we do?" she asked quietly. Brent met her eyes. "We go to war." The next morning, Brent made 3 phone calls. The first was to Margaret Vance, his father's VP of operations. "I have documentation of William's side deal with Apex," he said calmly. "Proof that he's been using company resources for personal profit. You can either convince him to back off Everly's Café, or I release everything to the board and the press." Margaret was silent for a long moment. "You'd really destroy your own father?" "I'd really protect the woman I love. His choice which matters more to him." The second call was to Caroline Smith at the Historical Preservation Office. "I have evidence that the health inspection filed against Cornerstone Café was fraudulent and filed by an inspector with financial ties to the party attempting to acquire the property. I'm forwarding documentation now. Mr. Blackwood, if this is accurate, this is a serious ethics violation." "It is accurate, and I expect the closure order to be lifted immediately." The third call was to a lawyer, not one of his father's, but an old friend from college who specialized in small business law. "David, I need you to fight a loan acceleration." "Yes, I know it's short notice." "Yes, I'll pay your full rate." "No, I can't use Blackwood funds." He glanced at Everly. "This one's personal." When he hung up, Everly was staring at him. "What?" he asked. "You're terrifying when you want to be." A wry smile. "I learned from the scariest businessman in the industry. And now you're using those powers for good instead of evil?" "Something like that." He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Besides, I told you. I'm done with that world. But that doesn't mean I can't use everything it taught me to protect this one." Everly wrapped her arms around him, breathing in his warmth, his certainty. "What happens when your father finds out what you're doing? He'll be furious. He'll probably accelerate the disinheritance. Might even try to retaliate. And you're okay with that?" Brent pulled back to look at her, his eyes soft but resolute. "Everly, I gave up $1 billion empire for the chance to build something real with you. Do you really think I'm going to back down now?" Her throat tightened. "I still can't believe you did that." "Believe it? Because I'm all in." His hand cupped her cheek. "The question is, are you?" It was the moment she'd been running from since he first walked into her cafe. The moment where she had to choose between protecting herself and risking everything for something that might not last. She thought about her parents' faith in her. The cafe she'd built with her own hands. The dreams she'd been fighting for alone. And she thought about Brent, mysterious, brilliant, damaged Brent, who'd seen her struggling at midnight and decided she was worth fighting for. "I'm all in," she whispered. And when he kissed her, really kissed her, not the careful almost kisses they'd been dancing around but deep and claiming and full of promise, Everly felt something shift inside her chest. Like a door she'd been holding shut finally opening. Like maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to fight alone anymore. By that afternoon, everything started moving. The Historical Preservation Office called to inform her the health inspection had been suspended pending investigation. Her lawyer called to say the bank had agreed to freeze the loan acceleration while they reviewed potential ethics violations. And Margaret Vance showed up at the cafe at 4 p.m., immaculate in a designer suit, her expression unreadable. "He wants to meet," she said without preamble. "William. Tomorrow morning. His office." Everly and Brent exchanged glances. "Why?" Brent asked. "Because you backed him into a corner, and he's smart enough to know when he's beaten." Margaret's lips twitched into something almost like approval. Or at least when continuing the fight would cost more than it's worth. "And if it's a trap? Then you'll handle it. You're his son, after all." She turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, Brent, I've worked for your father for 15 years. And I've never seen him look as rattled as when he read your documentation this morning." When she left, Everly let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Tomorrow," she said. "We end this tomorrow." Brent took her hand, threading their fingers together. "Together," he agreed. And for the first time in days, Everly felt something she'd almost forgotten. But they had no idea that William Blackwood had one final card to play, and the meeting tomorrow would force them to make an impossible choice. We're so close. What do you think William is going to offer them? And more importantly, what do you think they should do? Comment below. And if you've made it this far without subscribing, come on, you know you're hooked. Hit that button. William Blackwood's office occupied the entire top floor of the Blackwood Tower in downtown Seattle. Everly had never seen anything like it: floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, original artwork that probably cost more than her entire building, furniture that whispered old money and absolute power. She felt wildly out of place in her simple blazer and slacks. Brent, beside her, looked perfectly at home. And completely unmoved. Brent. William stood from behind his massive desk, his expression carefully neutral. Miss Stone. Dad. Brent's voice was cool. Professional. You wanted to meet. I did. William gestured to the leather chairs across from his desk. Please. Sit. They sat. William studied them for a long moment, his sharp eyes missing nothing. The way Brent's hand rested protectively on Everly's back, the way she sat straighter when William's gaze landed on her, the united front they presented. You've made your point, William said finally. Have I? Brent leaned back, deceptively relaxed. Because from where I'm sitting, you tried to destroy an innocent woman's business to punish me for making my own choices. I was protecting the family legacy. You were being vindictive. A muscle twitched in William's jaw. Perhaps. But you left me little choice. You disappeared, abandoned your responsibilities. I took a leave of absence, which I was entitled to, and threw away everything I built for you for a failing cafe and a woman you barely know. Don't. Brent's voice went hard. Don't talk about Everly like she's some frivolous distraction. And her cafe isn't failing, it was thriving before you decided to sabotage it. William's eyes narrowed. You always were too sentimental. Too soft. Maybe. Or maybe I just have different priorities than you. Silence stretched between them, decades of complicated history packed into the tension. Finally, William sighed, and for the first time, he looked old. What do you want, Brent? For you to leave Everly alone. Permanently. Lift the health inspection. Stop pressuring her bank. Kill your deal with Apex regarding her property. And in exchange? In exchange, I don't release documentation of your side deal with Apex to the board and the SEC. William's expression didn't change, but Everly saw his hands tighten on the desk. You'd really do that? He asked quietly. Destroy your own father? You tried to destroy the woman I love first. Brent's voice was steady. Certain. So yes, if that's what it takes, I'll do it. For a long moment, father and son stared at each other. Then William turned to Everly. You know what you're getting with him, don't you? He asked. He's impulsive. Idealistic. He'll choose passion over profit every single time. I know, Everly said quietly. That's why I love him. Something flickered in William's expression. Surprise, maybe respect. And you believe you can build a successful business together? You and my disinherited son. Yes. She met his gaze without flinching. Because we're building something that actually matters to people. Something with heart. That's worth more than any corporate acquisition. Heart doesn't pay the bills. Maybe not. But it's what makes people come back. What creates loyalty? What builds something lasting? She leaned forward. You taught Brent business strategy, Mr. Blackwood. But I think he learned the most important lesson somewhere else, that the best businesses are built on genuine connection, not just profit margins. William was quiet for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he laughed. You've got fire, he said, almost appreciatively. I'll give you that. He stood, moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back. I built Blackwood Hospitality from a single property, he said. Worked 18-hour days, sacrificed everything, turned it into an empire. And I always assumed Brent would take over, expand it, make it even greater. He still could, Everly offered carefully. Someday. If that's what he wanted. But it's not. William glanced back at his son. Is it? Brent shook his head. No, it's not. I respect what you built. But I don't want to spend my life acquiring and expanding for the sake of acquisition and expansion. I want to help people build their dreams. Support small businesses. Create something meaningful. That's not the Blackwood way. Then maybe I'm not meant to follow the Blackwood way. The words hung in the air, final and freeing. William turned fully, studying his son with an expression Everly couldn't quite read. You're really willing to walk away from everything. I already did. For her. For us. For a future I actually want. Brent stood, moving beside Everly. And I'm not asking for your blessing or your approval. I'm just asking you to leave us alone. William was quiet for so long that Everly wondered if he'd respond at all. Then he moved to his desk, picked up his phone, and made a call. Margaret, cancel the Apex deal for the properties on 5th Street. Yes, all of them. Immediately. He paused. And call Thomas at Pacific Bank. Tell him to restore Miss Stone's original loan terms. Consider it a personal favor. He hung up. Everly's heart pounded. Why? William looked at her. Because my son is right, I was being vindictive. And because... He hesitated, something almost vulnerable crossing his face. Because I remember what it was like to believe in something enough to risk everything for it. I just forgot somewhere along the way. He turned to Brent. I'm not reinstating your position. And I'm not reversing the disinheritance. You made your choice, and choices have consequences. I understand. But... William's voice softened, barely, but noticeably. If you ever need advice, or connections, or someone to bounce ideas off, my door is open. Not as your boss. As your father. Brent's throat worked. Okay. And Miss Stone. Everly straightened. Yes. Take care of him. He's more valuable than he realizes. I know, she said softly. And I will. William nodded once, then moved back to the window, clearly dismissing them. Brent and Everly stood, moving toward the door. They were almost out when William spoke again. Brent. Yeah, Dad. For what it's worth. Pause. I'm proud of you. For knowing what you want and having the courage to fight for it. Brent's hand tightened on the door handle, his shoulders rigid with emotion. Thanks, Dad, he managed. They left. They didn't speak until they were in the elevator, doors closed, descending from the top floor. Then Everly turned to Brent and saw tears streaming silently down his face. Hey! She cupped his face, thumbs brushing away the wetness. You okay? He's never said that, Brent whispered. In 32 years, he's never said he's proud of me. Well, he said it now. Because I chose you over him. No. Everly shook her head. Because you chose yourself. Your own path. Your own future. That just happens to include me. Brent pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I love you, he said roughly. God, Everly, I love you so much. I love you too. She held him tight, feeling the tremor in his body, the release of tension he'd been carrying for weeks. And we're going to build something amazing together. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor. They stepped out into the Seattle sunshine, hand in hand, and Everly felt lighter than she had in months. The cafe was safe. Her loan was restored. And the man beside her, brilliant, damaged, beautiful Brent, was hers. Not because he had money or connections or power, but because they'd chosen each other again and again through every obstacle. So, Brent said, a smile breaking through the tears. What now? Everly grinned. Now we go home. And we show your father, and everyone else, exactly what we can build when we fight together. Together, Brent agreed. And as they walked toward the future they'd fought so hard for, Everly knew with absolute certainty. This was just the beginning. 6 months later, Everly stood outside Cornerstone Café at 5:45 a.m., coffee in hand, and smiled at the line already forming down the block. It never got old. The cafe had been transformed, not just physically, though the landmark status approval had allowed them to restore the original 1924 tilework and Art Deco details, but in spirit. The menu had expanded to include Brent's gourmet sandwiches and rotating seasonal specials. They'd added evening hours, hosting open mic nights and community events. And most importantly, they'd created a space where people felt genuinely welcome, where connection mattered more than transaction. "Morning, boss." Jamie appeared beside her, grinning. "Ready for another crazy day?" "Always." Everly unlocked the door. "How's college prep going?" "Good. I got my acceptance letter from Seattle U yesterday." Jamie's eyes sparkled. "Business management, just like we talked about." "Jamie, that's amazing." Everly pulled her into a hug. "I'm so proud of you. Couldn't have done it without this place. Without you teaching me that business can be about more than just making money." She headed inside. Plus, the recommendation letter from Brent Blackwood probably didn't hurt. Everly laughed, following her in. The cafe had become something neither she nor Brent had expected, not just a business, but a model. They'd started consulting with other small cafe owners, sharing strategies, offering support. Brent had even launched a foundation, funded by his personal savings, not family money, to provide microloans to entrepreneurs who couldn't get traditional bank financing. He called it the Cornerstone Foundation, because he'd said everyone deserved a chance to build something solid. The morning rush was beautiful chaos, regulars who knew their names, newcomers drawn by word of mouth and social media buzz, business meetings and first dates, and students studying for exams. Around 9 a.m., Brent emerged from the back kitrob, flour dusting his dark hair, a tray of fresh croissants in hand. Their eyes met across the cafe. And Everly's heart still did that stupid fluttering thing. 6 months, and she was more in love with him than ever. He navigated through the crowd, set down the tray, and pressed a quick kiss to her temple. "Taste test," he offered, breaking off a piece of croissant. She took a bite. "Buttery, flaky, perfect. You're going to put the French bakery down the street out of business," she teased. "Jean-Pierre and I are collaborating now. He's teaching me proper lamination technique, I'm helping him with his social media strategy." Brent grinned. Rising tide lifts all boats, remember? It was their philosophy now. Competition didn't have to mean destruction. There was room for everyone to succeed. "Oh, I almost forgot." Brent pulled an envelope from his apron pocket. "This came for you." Everly recognized her mother's handwriting. She opened it carefully, unfolding the card inside. "Sweetheart, your father and I drove by the cafe yesterday. We sat outside for an hour, just watching. Watching you lead your team, greet customers, build the community you always dreamed of. We are so incredibly proud of the woman you've become. And we're grateful you found someone who sees your light as clearly as we do. Love always, Mom and Dad." Tears pricked Everly's eyes. She'd finally told them everything 3 months ago. The near failure, the struggles, the fight with Apex, all of it. And instead of disappointment, they'd wrapped her in fierce hugs and told her that asking for help wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. "You okay?" Brent's hand found the small of her back. "Perfect." She tucked the card away carefully. "Just really, really happy." That evening, after closing, they sat on the cafe's newly renovated rooftop patio. The city sparkled below them, lights flickering to life as sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. Brent had insisted on adding the rooftop space, a quiet retreat for employees, a venue for private events, and sometimes, like tonight, just a place for the two of them to breathe. "I got a call from my dad today," Brent said, stretching his legs out. Everly turned to him. They'd had limited contact with William over the past 6 months. Professional courtesy, the occasional business question, slowly rebuilding trust. "What did he say?" "He wants to feature Cornerstone in Blackwood's quarterly magazine. Spotlight on innovative small businesses making a difference in their communities." Brent shook his head, smiling. "He's even talking about creating a Blackwood partnership program to support independent cafes instead of acquiring them." That's huge." "I know. It's not a complete transformation, but—" Brent's voice softened. "It's a start. He's trying in his way." "How do you feel about that?" He considered. "But, I mean, we'll never have the relationship I wished we'd had when I was younger." But we're building something new. Something honest. Everly leaned into him, his arm coming around her shoulders automatically. I'm proud of you, she said quietly. For everything you've built. Everything you've become. We built it, Brent corrected. Together. Together, she agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights multiply as darkness fell. Then Brent shifted, reaching into his pocket. So, I have something for you, he said, suddenly sounding nervous. Everly's heart skipped. Brent. It's not what you think. I mean, it might be someday, but... He pulled out a small velvet box. Just open it. With trembling fingers, Everly opened the box. Inside was a delicate silver key on a chain. It's the original key to the cafe, Brent explained. From 1924, when it first opened. I found it in the renovation, had it restored. He took it out, the metal catching the fading light. I wanted you to have it. Because you didn't just save this place, you brought it back to life. You made it matter again. Everly's vision blurred with tears. And because, he continued, voice dropping to something intimate and raw, you gave me a key to something I didn't even know I was looking for. A life that feels real. Work that matters. Love that's built on truth. He fastened the necklace around her neck, his fingers gentle against her skin. I love you, Everly Stone, he whispered, and I want to keep building this life with you. Every crazy, beautiful, unpredictable moment. She turned to face him, cupping his face in her hands. I love you too, she said. My secret billionaire who turned out to be so much more than that. Oh yeah? What am I? My partner. My best friend. The person who believed in my dream even when I'd stopped believing in it myself. She kissed him softly. You're my cornerstone. His arms tightened around her, and they stayed like that as the stars emerged one by one overhead. Later, as they walked home through the quiet streets hand in hand, Everly thought about the journey that had brought them here. The desperation that had made her hire a mysterious stranger. The lies that had almost torn them apart. The fight they'd chosen to face together. And the love they'd built, not in spite of the obstacles, but because of them. What are you thinking about? Brent asked. How different my life looks from 6 months ago. Better. Infinitely. She squeezed his hand. I almost lost everything. Café, my dream. And somehow I ended up with more than I ever imagined. That's what happens when you refuse to give up, Brent said. When you keep fighting for what matters. We kept fighting, she corrected. We did. He smiled. And we're going to keep fighting. For this cafe, for the community, for every dreamer who needs a chance. Together. Always together. They reached her apartment, their apartment now, since Brent had moved in last month, and paused on the stoop. Above them, the sign for Cornerstone Café glowed in the distance, a beacon of everything they'd fought for. Everything they'd won. Ready for tomorrow? Brent asked. Tomorrow they were meeting with 3 new cafe owners who wanted consulting help. Tomorrow they'd finalize the application for 2 more foundation grants. Tomorrow they'd keep building the dream that had started with a desperate job posting and a billionaire in disguise. With you. Everly smiled up at him, her heart full to bursting. I'm ready for anything. And as Brent kissed her under the streetlights, as the city hummed around them with possibility and promise, Everly knew with absolute certainty. This was exactly where she was meant to be. Not because the path had been easy, but because she'd found someone worth fighting beside. Someone who'd seen her struggling at midnight and decided she was worth believing in. Someone who'd given up an empire for the chance to build something real. And together, they'd created something more valuable than any acquisition or inheritance. A life built on truth, passion, and love. A cornerstone foundation for the beautiful future waiting ahead. Thank you so much for joining me on Everly and Brent's journey. If you love this story, please let me know in the comments. I want to hear your favorite moments. And don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories of love, redemption, and second chances. Until next time, friends, keep believing in the power of fighting for what matters.